first thing I'd like to do is, could you all please give James a warm 86 welcome to NAMS? And so what we're going to do today is James and I have kind of come up with a lesson of a series of talking points. I am going to kind of cut it because I do want to turn it over to all of you. I know you all wrote questions yesterday, but some of you might want to ask them live, and we'll have a really cool opportunity for you to interact. What I'm also going to do is I'm going to ask Jimmy to give us a little, James to give us a little bit of advice about doing our own research. James, welcome. And the first topic that we'd like to talk about is where and why did it all start? Why did you choose a career in media? Obviously, your avenue is a little different in terms of what you do. You can tell us a little about that. How and when did it start for you? And what advice would you give any students that are thinking about having a podcast or going into media or any of these types of things? So welcome to the Civics Classroom. We're thrilled to have you here.
Thank you. So first of all, it's interesting being on what I call the other side of the desk. I'm known to pack 5 questions in 1 question. I think you did about 3 there. And so first of all, thank you all for the opportunity to come and speak with you all today. I know this is right after lunch. This is right after, so either some of you are like, I'm ready to go home. Some of you ate a good lunch, a little sleepy. And so I will try to ensure that we keep this as engaging as possible. So to answer the first question, to be very honest with you, I did not choose this. This chose me. If you were to ask anyone that has known me, I was either going to be a politician, a pastor, or a nonprofit leader. On March 23rd, how many of you all remember in 2020, y'all thought you were going to be on a 2-week vacation, maybe a 4-week vacation. Governor Charlie Baker at the time said, hey, y'all need to stay home. And we thought it was going to be a couple of weeks. I had a following on social media, a little bit about me, grew up in Bromley Heath housing projects in Jamaica Plain, graduate of Boston Public Schools. And I moved in advocacy and activism from the age of 11. I am now another age, and you'll figure it out. I've been doing this for 41 years of advocating for my community. And I had a following on social media. I would go live, 30, 40 people pop in, blah, blah, blah. The morning after the governor told us to stay home, I was making a cup of coffee. I got it off the Keurig. I walked in my office. I had a home office, and I remember the governor saying that we needed to stay home. At that time, 2 weeks, couple of months, we thought that was going to be the case. That wound up not being the case and wound up being a little bit longer. And so I went live knowing a lot of you saw on social media, in the news, that a lot of the health issues and the major impact of COVID-19 was among a lot of Black and brown communities. It was hitting everybody. It was a world pandemic. But what COVID did was really highlight a lot of what we call health disparities. So to speed things up, I went live. 50 people came on the live. I was like, and so we're engaging, we're talking just about what the governor said. And at the very end, my mother, who is interested in being on my social media page, types and says, will this be an everyday coffee hour? And I was like, nah, not planning on it. And what I did, again, I keep saying 2 weeks to 2 months. I thought at the most, we'd be home for a couple of weeks. I'd commit to going live every day. On March 24th of this year, it'll be 4 years that Java with Jimmy has been. That's the name of the talk show. It's called Java with Jimmy. And so I say that to say that it didn't choose me, or I didn't choose it. It chose me. I had no intention on doing anything. All this you see with the brand, it took me 6 months. People were like, you need to get at least a coffee mug. And it took 6 months for me to do things like that. And so every once in a while, I'm on television now. I have probably, at last look, the team, we were close to like 21,000 followers. That's not a lot in comparison to some major celebrities. but a dude from Bromley Heath Housing Projects that runs his mouth over coffee, and it has monetized, meaning I make money off the platform. Very interesting. So it chose me. Long way of saying it chose me, but to give you some history and just the piece you said about think about doing your own podcast, I'm as impactful. I got some street cred because of the time I've spent from the age of 11 advocating for community. You all, I would presume, are over the age of 11, close to it or whatever. It doesn't take much to start a podcast. You all are on Snap, TikTok, all this other stuff. Think about your messaging, and we can get into, you know, how you form it, how you think about your message, your branding, the name of it when you go on. Who's your target audience? Who's going to come on? What makes you different from everybody else that's running their mouth on social media? So back to you.
Obviously, Java with Jimmy, if they did a search, you know, they could, your shows are there to
Yes.
watch. I've watched a couple. I don't, so in terms of the show, what is the show all about? You know, obviously you're not really a news reporter. You're talking about a wide variety of things. So just tell us a little bit about the show and the guests you have and the conversations you have. And actually, James is actually filming a show in the Teachers Lounge after he speaks with all of you, so we can go live today. So tell us a little bit about the show before we move on to the rest of the program. It's interesting.
The mission of the show, and I've only been clearly able to articulate this in the last maybe year and a half, 2 years. The mission of Java with Jimmy is to share information and resources with the most marginalized communities for the purpose of them mobilizing toward action toward an equitable quality of life. Basically, equity, health equity, electoral politics equity, education equity. We're in school, so I can't say. You all watch the news. You know, there's a new industry in Massachusetts where, you know, we want equity. If you all know what I'm talking about, nod your heads. If you don't know what I'm talking about, that's fine. Equity across the board when it comes to not just black and brown people, when it comes to women, when it comes to LGBTQ plus communities, when it comes to the immigrant community. Those are the issues that I raise on my social media. Now, if you go and follow me, it's at Java with Jimmy on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, all of that. I also have embraced that I'm an influencer. And so for the purpose of getting people, I got a very viral video on Instagram right now. Have any of you seen an Instagram video of a woman on crutches that fell around Thanksgiving? No. All right. It's about 2.4 million views. That spiked me up. All right, you're coming in because you've seen my aunt fall. But I got off of that about 1,900 followers in about 6 weeks. Somewhere in that 1,900, you're going to come on my show and hear me talk about breast cancer. You're going to hear me talk about COVID-19 updates. You're going to hear me talk about youth voice. That's one of the major things. This, what I'm doing today, this is my first love. I used to be a youth worker, direct service youth worker with some very interesting young people that were kind of focused and young people that were kind of not so focused. And so the nature of the platform is sharing information. I bring on the governor, I bring on the mayor, Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley, I bring on doctors, I bring on nurses. Have I had a celebrity? I don't think I've had a celebrity on the show. I don't think so. But it is really to give power to voices. I used to say that the platform gives power to the voiceless. Nah, everybody got a voice. I just consider myself a choir director. You would be the sopranos over here, y'all would be the altos, and y'all would be the tenors. And I just try to amplify voices in the community that are working toward equity. And I also advise corporations around community engagement, what it is that they should be doing, and not in a manner where, you give me $10,000 and y'all gonna come in the hood, for a half a day and paint a middle school and, that's it. No, let's talk for about a year. Let's look at your HR policies. Let's look at what food you're serving in the cafeteria during Ramadan. Let's look at what food you're serving during St. Patrick's Day. equity across the board, and let me say this, equity does not mean that one perceived population that has had a lot of power for a long time and whatnot, bringing others up to that to shared power doesn't take away from this. It just puts everybody at an even playing field. I didn't mean to go too far out there, but.
So, you know, you talked about a number of issues that you talk about on the show. You mentioned a few things. So for this one, James, something, it doesn't have to be a story because you're not really a reporter, but maybe a topic on the show or a focus on the show. What's been a very meaningful one to you that, you know, you've reported on? You know, why did you pick it? And, you know, what impact has it had on you today? It's resonated. You know, I asked you to kind of pick one. Could you pick a meaningful topic or issue? You know, you talked a little bit about a few things, but think about your shows. How many shows have you done?
The first year I went live every single solitary day, sometimes 2 or 3 times a day. So that's at least 365. Adding, I had some periods where I wasn't on every day from year 2 through now. So I would say I'm somewhere around 1,200 shows.
Wow, okay, so that's a lot
If
to
you hear
choose
this
from.
foot going, that means that the reality of what I'm saying is hitting me in the moment. Like my nerves are shot a little bit, that we got like 1,100 some odd shows on the internet. That's crazy.
Wow. So pick an issue or a topic that, you know, that stayed with you.
One of the most impactful shows that I did was about 3 or 4 months ago. How many of you, where you're comfortable raising your hand, are aware of the opioid crisis? Raise your hand. The opioid crisis, there's an area in Boston called MAS and CAS. I don't know if any of you have ever heard that term.
Tell us a little bit about the
I was actually getting ready to do that. So some years ago, a pharmaceutical company came up with a drug that relieved pain, but also it caused people, one of the bad reactions was it caused people to be addicted to it. And opioids, Oxycontin, and drugs like that, it caused people to be addicted, along with other what I call street pharmacology, street drugs, heroin and things like that. In Boston, there is a concentrated area near the highway where people, a lot of people come into town for help. Boston has a lot of services, like they're coming in looking for help. The unfortunate thing is when they get off that bus, there's a dealer there knowing what's going on and be like, yo, you know, they just spent 2 or 3 hours trying to come into the city and haven't been able to meet their need, you know, needing to use substances to survive and function. And they get caught up in that area called MAS and CAS. For what, at least the last couple of decades, it has been an issue. And so the mayor, Mayor Michelle Wu, the first elected woman mayor, an Asian woman who speaks Spanish in Boston, came on the show one day, and every time she comes on, we were talking about violence and we were talking about MAS and CAS. And one day I just got frustrated and I said, yo, did I say yo to her? I may have. I'm tired of this, what we call cyclical. We keep getting, you ever be with your parents and you're on a rotary and sometimes they forget which exit to get off at and you go around a couple of times? Issues of violence and MAS and CAS, I got tired of hearing, you know, it's a human problem, we got to work on it. And I just straight asked her, Mayor, what is the off-ramp to getting off the road of this thing with MAS and CAS? She sat back for a second, and I'm honestly going to say, I don't know if she planned this. Me and the mayor are actually friends. Michelle and I, when she was an intern in City Hall, I was sitting at this desk. Michelle was sitting like right over there as an intern. And so to see this woman mayor, to go from an intern into running the city of Boston is just ridiculous to me. And so sometimes when she's on the show, I kind of, depending on the topic, I forget that we're like on the show. And so I said, what is the off-ramp? And so she sat back, and I don't remember her exact words, but whatever she said that day, her and her team went back and they made it happen. Is MAS and CAS over? No. Are there still issues with substance use there? Absolutely. The reason that show means so much to me, now on the petty side, let me be petty. Major, you know, I don't consider myself a journalist, but major media outlets, Globe, Herald, 4, 5, 7, BZ, CBS, WCBV, all of a sudden I'm getting texts and tagged on Twitter, oh, Mayor Michelle Wu on Java with Jimmy said blah, blah, blah. And from that day forward, it caused the city to implement what she answered and said. And basically, if I remember right, that we needed to look at people on a one-on-one individual basis. And they implemented that and they took that approach. That is one of the most impactful shows to me. Of course, there is a show I did where, and I think I'll hold myself together. I did a show about breast cancer. My sister is a survivor. And I got asked the other day what was my favorite show. And I think that that is my favorite show because a lot of what went on with my sister, she didn't tell us. And so we found out sort of after the fact. And so in real time on WGBH, my sister is saying things to me and I'm like, huh? And I got a little emotional. And off that show, I was gonna say mad, a lot of people went and got women went and got mammograms. And so impact is my goal. If I don't have all this, branding and I put little reels up, I don't pay myself, but the platform is monetized. I talk about self-care. And so the way I practice self-care is, sometimes you got to go to Miami to get a nice meal, to get on the beach, stay in a nice hotel. And so I put that stuff on social media. All that stuff is cool. But if every once in a while, at least once or twice a week, I get messages, keep doing what you're doing, thank you for this, blah, blah, blah. Impact is the goal. So that's favorite story and
Great.
one of the ones that meant the most to me.
That's great.
Thank you for sharing that. So one of the things that kind of came out is, obviously talking about breast cancer and your sister and then talking about a drug crisis. Those are sad, depressing things.
Yep.
And some of the reporters that came in, the first reporter talked about the Boston Marathon. Another reporter talked about the shooting in the bowling alley in Lewiston, Maine. So when you film those shows or do stories or whatever that are very emotional, you gotta go to the next one, right? You gotta go to the next one. So how do you do that? Like, how do you leave something that's so emotional and in some cases sad, and how do you go to talking about something different? Like, how do you switch? That must be tough.
It is very tough. An expert reporter pulled me aside. I interviewed him on my show at GBH, and he said, Jimmy, I don't know how you do this without notes.
Without notes.
Without notes. Java with Jimmy is a very organic space. In 2020, when you talk about switch, that was during COVID. How many of you lost a relative to COVID during 2020? Do you remember anybody that passed? Anybody in your family, grandparent, anyone like that? No, nobody? Y'all are good.
I did. Someone that sadly passed away.
Someone
with
that passed away
COVID-related
because of
illness.
COVID-19. If you all knew anyone, raise your hand. Or of anyone that knew someone. Well, y'all are good if not that many hands are raised. There would be times I'm telling a joke, I'm talking about a reel on social media, and we're laughing, and someone would type in, my mom just passed. Huh? Live. And everybody else is seeing the comment, I'm seeing the comment, and I'm like, and so, I mentioned that one of the things that I was going to be some years ago was a pastor. And I would have to literally, I would take my hat off and we would bow our head and we would have prayer right there live. So when you talk about switching, that's a little bit different. One of the things that I'm intentional about on the Java with Jimmy platform is something that we call Black Joy. And let me say right now, Black Joy is not confined just to Black and brown people. Black Joy, anybody that is not Black or brown, appreciate watching Jason Tatum, appreciate now, I don't know if y'all shouldn't be, well, Dave Chappelle, some other artists and whatnot, they bring you joy. Black joy is not confined just to Black people. I am very intentional about Black joy. If that is, mentioning a reel, if I, screenshot somebody's video that looks funny and I can manipulate it to get their branding off of it, make it look like my video, I'll throw that up to bring up joy. We tell jokes. A lot of people in the comments know me. They'll take wisecracks at me and whatnot. And so switching from such a serious subject takes intentionality. And I'm watching the comments and I can feel the vibe of the room by the comments. I can also feel the vibe by anybody ever went live on Facebook and you got the little numbers up in the corner. Sometimes you get 40, 50, and then sometimes it be 5. And so I go through that as well when you talk about switching. And so it's intentionality around bringing joy into spaces, being real about what the issue is, but finding a way to make a joke, finding a way to say something positive. I always want to end on a positive note and not leave people in such a deep, heavy space. And let me pause here. A lot of people say that, you know, at your age, you all don't go through anything. Y'all have come up in a world pandemic, wars going on for you know, women, whatever your status is, questions around as you're maturing, you know, what women's health looks like in the future. And so it's a lot. It's a lot that you all are dealing with. And so to your point earlier about a podcast, that is, I think, one of the best ways that you can raise your voice, but it's also therapeutic. You talking to people and getting your opinion out and people listening to you and there's dialogue, there's something that happens there. So need to go too far out.
So you talked about your, you know, obviously the great thing about you coming in, and you just talked about viewers and people watching, you know, a reporter, you know, they might not get as instant feedback, but you're getting instant because you see those numbers, right? So I like this question for you. The big story, the big topic. What topic have your viewers reacted to the most? You know, just a topic and you're like, wow, I can't believe people are really getting into this. People are commenting. Can you just think of something that like really got people talking?
I would say it was the response from the mayor. That was one of the biggest stories. The other thing is, it isn't a particular topic. What people vibe off when I get my best numbers is when I simply sit there organically and run my mouth. There'll be some times I won't have guests, and I'll just go off the cuff. I'll look at the comments, feedback on them. That's when I get sort of the most engagement. But if I was to pick a topic, I would probably say the political stuff. Mm-hmm. That is the topic that generally younger, older, male, female, black, white, that is one of the major topics that folks center around. Good, bad, and ugly. Okay. They cite stuff that's going on negative in politics, but they also talk about the importance of voting and engaging and things like that.
Okay, so, you know, unlike the, you know, the staff, the people that were in earlier who worked for Channel 7 or the Globe or the Post, you're kind of like a one-person operation. I know that you have other people that I'm sure are there to support you. But in terms of you preparing for a show, right? So you're doing the show on breast cancer, you're doing the show on the opioid crisis. Can you take us through like research that you need to do? Like, how do you do your research? How do you confirm things? How do you prepare? Because I know you say you don't have notes and things like that, but obviously if you're doing a topic, you're gonna want to be prepared. And obviously the students here at the end of their 8th grade year, like maybe like March, April, May, they're going to be doing a student-led civics project where they get to pick a topic that they feel passionate about, do research, and then try to make change. That's something that everyone is doing in the whole Massachusetts. Every 8th grader is doing it. So just advice that you can give them. So kind of like, what's your research process like for shows, and advice that you can give them on how to do credible research and being careful of looking at misinformation, because there's a lot out there.
So let me keep it 100 with you all. One of the reasons I run from the term journalist in media is because I respect research and accuracy. If any of you in here are aspiring to be in any level of journalism, any of you in here consider yourself an influencer, you got a few followers on social media and whatnot, it is very, very important that when you share stuff, you share, if it's informational, you share the right information. The way that I do research is a lot of times online through trusted news outlets. Again, you know, I got a membership to the Globe. I have a membership to the Herald and whatnot. And so I balance also you have to not only research the topic, it would behoove you, going into a little media literacy, research the outlet. If I was to ask you all, if by your awareness, I'm just curious, can somebody tell me if they're aware of what some would classify as a conservative media outlet? Anyone? I used to be a youth worker. I have no problem calling y'all out and pointing y'all out. Anyone? Sir? Fox News. Can someone tell me a media outlet that is maybe considered very liberal?
We did look at these. There was a graph on the.
Oh, y'all talked about this?
We
Okay.
have to-
My man right here with the fro. A somewhat liberal media outlet. What is it? ABC News. Okay. Now, are you?
So they took a political personality test to kind of see where they were at on the spectrum.
Where you all were.
Some of them agreed with it, some of them didn't. And then what we did is it's really hard to see behind the camera, but we did a little scope of left, center, right, and then just kind of familiarize them with that. And the test was very, very personal and private. They did not have to share anything. But again, they were all exposed to that and being prepared for when they looked at resources. And that's part of a curriculum that we're doing with the kids on a Freedom of Press unit.
Thank you for this, because I haven't seen an updated one of this since I was in middle school. All right, I'm going to ask you all an honest question. How many of you, through the test, came out on a conservative end?
To the right.
To the right. Be honest. How many came out on the right? Okay. How many came out on the left? How many? Now, all of y'all got hands in here. I'm going to ask it again. How many came out on the right? How many came out on the left? Left or right? Gentlemen back here. Right? Right? Okay.
And there was a middling result too. So
How
they
many
could do
were in the
left, right, or
middle?
middling.
That's what, okay, forgive me,
Okay.
that's why y'all
Yeah,
were
there
raising
were
hands.
three
I'm sorry.
Yeah, no
Okay.
problem.
So know your media resource. If you know that Fox is right leaning and they say something about an issue, you might want to every once in a while, I go to Fox. And now I'm left leaning. This is Jimmy. I lean left. But every once in a while, I go to the right side. One, just to get a different perspective. Two, just because you may have a difference of an opinion around an issue, it does not mean that the facts of the issue changes. That's why you have to do research. I am not a journalist. I am a very opinionated commentator. I'll put some facts out there, but I don't just report facts. I give opinion about some of the facts of which I'm aware. If any of you are thinking about going in journalism seriously, or if you're an influencer now on social media, be very cognizant and aware of what you share and how you say it. How many people want a good job when they get older? How many people want to go to a nice college when they get older? Mm-hmm. Guess what's on applications now, which wasn't on my application when I was working and going to college? Would you please provide us with your ads? Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, Snapchat, TikTok. Colleges and jobs are looking at your social media now. So side note, you also want to be cognizant of what you're sharing and what you're posting. I don't care if Snap goes away after 24 hours and WhatsApp and all these new features. If it's put on the internet, it can be found. Side note there. Sorry.
No,
That's the youth worker in me. Sorry.
No, that's great. And the thing is that when they, to talk a little bit more about the Civic Action Project, there was a 2018 Civics law that was passed, and they have these wonderful students, as every 8th grader in the Commonwealth, have to do a year of intense civics, and there is a Civic Action Project where they pick a topic and they pick an issue and they research it, and some of them want to make real change and connect with local, state, or federal government. But one of the things about the research is researching what you're interested in. Like, for example, we had a group of kids that wanted to extend recess, right? So in a whole day that these kids go to school, from homeroom 7:40, 2:20, they're out of here. 22-minute break, that's all they get. And, it's very short. So a lot of kids wanted to extend recess. So when they did research, looking at the pros of recess, I said to them, and James, you just said it a couple minutes ago, go on the other side and see what the other side is saying, because you are going to have detractors that are going to disagree with you, and you're prepared for it. And that's a really good thing that I wanted to ask, about this. Obviously, you had the mayor on, and I'm sure you have a lot of your colleagues. I'm trying to think of a nice way to ask this. Have you ever had someone on your show that, in a live show, you've disagreed with? And how does that go? Like, how do you deal with that? Because, let's say someone you have on, and all of a sudden they make this statement, and you're like, what? Like, how do you deal with that? Like, confrontation, disagreement, that's an important part of your job.
It is, and I failed for almost 2 years. And the youth worker is going to pause at me for a minute. When you all have a guest come in, I know it's after lunch, I know it's a little warm in here. Thank you, because I see the heads getting ready to pop up. You all are going to have to, at some point, make presentations, and it doesn't, bother me, whatever, I'm going to do me. But you want to be aware that when guests come in, you want to give your best. I'm leaving out of here with an impression of North Andover Middle. And this is my first impression. So I just wanted to put that out there a little bit. Bring me back.
So
a disagreement.
People make statements and you're like, oh my gosh, did they just say that?
So I'll be very honest. The current district attorney in Boston, the governor appointed him. We did not get to vote for him. And I was aware of some of what's perceived as his right-leaning policies. How many heard of a woman by the name of Rachel Rollins? She was the first African-American district attorney and also went to be the U.S. attorney on. She was very, what some would call, liberal. She believed that putting people in the criminal justice system for little things like petty theft, things like that, wasn't that well. A lot of people didn't go to jail, didn't get in the system and then have criminal records. The current DA, or the one that the governor appointed, didn't agree with that. And really put it out there that part of his goal was, she had a list of 15 things that we weren't going to lock people up for. He was basically like, we're going to look at that list and reduce it. And so he was running for office, and I invited him on. Now, I'll be honest, he didn't say anything that made me flip. From the onset of him coming on, the energy was there. He popped on screen, what's up, Kevin? And I know him, he ran for district attorney, but I know him from the community. What's up, Kevin? Folks come on like 2 to 3 minutes before the show just to make sure their mic and camera's good, things like that. And he felt the energy. And so I did my best to hear his opinion and hear from the other side the impact of not locking these people up. At that time, I think I was about 2 years in. And I keep my phone by me sometimes when I have guests on the show just to look and see. Sometimes I'll look at Twitter or whatever, see if people are commenting. Dude, sorry.
You say it.
When I tell you my phone was blowing up with a lot of my advisors and people that I respect, they was like, you're being biased. You're coming at him. You can't do that. You got to be balanced. And so I failed the first time that happened, to be very honest with you all, because I was aware of what that policy change could potentially do to folks that look like me and yourselves as well. And there really hasn't been, there was one other time. I have a team now. I used to do everything, book, flyers, post, everything. I did everything. I have a team now and they're helping. They booked some guy to come on the show from Atlanta, and he was talking about DEI work. And I asked him a question, and the answer he gave was almost, if I don't remember exactly what it was, but if I were to put money on it, it was somewhere around misogynistic and just belittling people that weren't aware of his knowledge base. Oh boy, for the first 10 minutes of that interview, I'm very expressive. And so again, phone started blowing up. And this time it was my team. They was like, Jimmy, this is your guest, man. You need to chill out and fall back a little bit. But he was saying something that I didn't agree with. And so I will be honest and say that my platform is one that a lot of the guests that come on, they do share my values. I am a commentator, and that people that share my values, they gravitate to the platform, and I gravitate towards them. And so in real time, thank you all, North Andover Middle, I'll probably go back to the team after today and talk about how we become a little more center. I'm left all day. I'm left, all day. Y'all wouldn't believe I used to work for George W. Bush. I used to work at the federal level for the second Bush administration. I was the African American Healthy Marriage lead and also the regional youth development director for Maine.
So you went to the White House?
Not at the White House.
Okay.
But I screwed up one day and had to send 28 pages of paperwork to the White House because I also had my little nonprofit thing on the side. And so I worked at the federal government in the Department of Health and Human Services, Administration for Children and Families, Region 1. I was the Youth Development and Runaway and Homeless Youth Specialist. And I was down in D.C. a lot and formed the National Youth Summit and things like that. So I'd be glad to come back at some point if y'all are interested and talk about that. But I will say this, you all don't discount a lot of the experience that you all are getting today in school and also in life. The reason my platform is successful is I'm from community, started out in community. So when I went live that day, it was from that lens. I actually also worked in healthcare. I was the program manager for the Pulmonary and Critical Care Fellowship at Brigham and Women's Hospital. When folks went into the hospital for COVID, they stayed where? Most of them were in what we call the ICU. The department that I was in charge of that trained the doctors oversaw the ICU. So I was in an environment that when COVID hit, you can't be around doctors for 3.5 years and not pick up some of the, being a doctor to some extent, not disrespecting any doctors that are watching, it's like a mechanic. You diagnose and you do your best to try to fix the car. You keep hearing that go on, you begin to pick up some things. Somebody came in for an x-ray one day. Excuse me, Dr. Baskin was so confident, he was like, James, can you write the rec to go to x-ray? I lie to y'all not. I sat there and wrote bilateral, now it's been some years, bilateral AP, basically meaning that they wanted the film to reflect both sides of whatever was going on in the body. He put his provider number on it and sent them to x-ray. All that to say that COVID helped with the health questions with the doctors. Working for Mayor Menino in federal government, I was an advisor to Governor DeVal Patrick around youth issues. That made me apt to now engage with these politicians that I'm on. And I know we're getting near time. And I hope that we got a few more minutes, but can we pause to see if they have any questions?
I would love that. That's what I was going to do. So obviously, if any of you have questions about having a podcast or being an influencer, he did talk a little bit about monetizing, obviously with branding and things like that, which I thought was really interesting. He talked about some of the experiences that he had. They did, if they're shy, James, I have questions that they came up with yesterday that I can ask on their behalf. But does anyone want to ask a live question to James?
Y'all didn't see me yesterday. Get to talk with me. Yes, ma'am.
Like when you first started, was it like when did it stop being like a hobby and start being like more?
Good question.
Good question.
The day Josiane Martinez from ASG, it's like a marketing advertising company, she called me and she said, hey, I'm gonna tell y'all after, I have X amount of dollars. What are your rates to, have the public health information on the show? I was like, oh, you just give me $25 and I'll be all set. What's your name? Huh?
Cam.
Cam? My sister's name is Cammy. Cam, she said she had close to $11,000. That was the day when I was like, one, I'm having impact. These folks are reaching out to buy time on my platform.
Yeah.
When I tell you she scolded me so bad, she said 25. She said, get you a little media rates. I had to do research. Get you a media rate sheet together. I'll just say that right now it's close. If someone approaches me and they want to purchase an hour, it's close to $1,500. Now imagine if I get 3 or 4 of those a month. I'm doing well. Cam, and then young lady in the back.
For every podcast you do, like how much it goes, do you get paid yearly?
Oh, so I don't get paid. I don't pay myself. The podcast has not generated enough funds because to pay me, I need to pay myself at least a good $75,000, $80,000. I work hard. And right now, I have a consulting firm on the side, as I said before. That's where, I'll be honest with you all, when COVID numbers went up, my business did well. And that bothered me. The philosophy was COVID numbers were going up. Public health organizations and hospitals were like, hey, Jimmy, you got a population that may not trust the medical industry for valid reasons, that may not listen to regular news. Regular news had become so depressing and whatnot. We need to reach your population. And so that, you know, is and I'm also community-based. And so I didn't go into it to make the money, Cam. I don't pay myself. And so it hasn't got to a point to where it pays itself. It does okay. But now that COVID is dissipating, I had to, like, nobody's hitting me up, which is a good thing. DPH, the hospitals aren't saying, hey, Jimmy, numbers are going up. We need to buy some time. I'm glad about that. But as a businessman and an entrepreneur, I had to switch. And so now I'm shopping my community advocacy experience and ability to engage the community to big corporations. Yeah, not no 10,000, no, let's talk 100 G's.
Jim, you have your show, so I don't want to mess
Yes,
this
sir.
up. But could you give this was
I got it 3 more minutes if it doesn't mess up, because I want to,
Well, their class.
Oh, y'all got class. All right,
They got
sorry.
class, and we do have the next speaker, but I want to get you to your spot.
Yes, sir.
Can you this was really, really good.